Welcome back to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I'm delighted to come back to the show as myself and deliver you, the listeners, a review of Yeovil Half Marathon 2026, personal thoughts, and a shout out and a little review to the event and some other bits and bobs that we want to talk about today as well. So what we're going to talk about in today's event is obviously the Yeovil Half Marathon, what happened on myself and why it was the biggest humbleization, is that a word? Or the most humbling half marathon that I've ever ran, and yeah, a few other bits and bobs as well. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. So what did I want going into the Yeovil Half Marathon 2026? Now, I openly admit I'm not in the primest condition I've ever been in when it comes to running. I'd say that the most prime condition I've ever been in for running in general was when I hit the 10k, sub 50 minute 10k in London in 2024. And through certain situations, not playing football at the time, through training for a London marathon, which is quite a big thing obviously, and yeah, a couple bits and bobs other than that, my running conditioning isn't as strong as what it has been in the past. And essentially going into the half marathon, I knew that I wasn't nailing splits like I had done previously, but I guess in your head, like a little bit of an ego says that you're going to be all right on the day. And unfortunately, I ran 2 hours and 4 minutes. But I say unfortunately for the fact that I didn't hit my target. But at the same time, a lot of people and me 5 years ago would have snapped your hand off for a time like that. So this isn't an episode where I'm going to beat myself up, but it's just going to speak to you about how I've quickly reframed that situation after coming back and actually being really annoyed at myself and with the situation, and was beating myself up a little bit yesterday evening, and how I've managed to flip it around, and how if you are frustrated with your current situation, your current reality right now, how we can do it. So quick little bit about how the race went, and also we want to talk about something called data, not drama, which I'm actually going to start with, because data, not drama, is something I do with my clients when it comes to flipping around situations and when they allow feelings to get into the way. And data on the day for me was running a 2 hour 4 minute half marathon, which isn't the fastest I've ever done. But the data in retrospect as well was also allowing me to realize that, you know, this is a journey that at one point I couldn't run a mile, and now I can go into a half marathon, not be in my best condition, and still get round in an average time as it is, you know, for me personally. And the other thing as well that I want to chuck in here is that when you do give yourself data rather than the drama that you may let go around your head, i.e. that wasn't good enough, I've let myself down, all of those kind of things, that's drama. But what you want to be applying to that is you want to be applying data. The other bits of data, even though my training didn't go and couldn't go fully to plan between January and March, I managed to run over 100 kilometers in training. I managed to get in the gym every week up until the half marathon. And there was many other bits of data as well that can support the fact that, you know, like, although I was beating myself up yesterday, my conditioning's got worse. Like, maybe I'm not the person that I say I am. Maybe my fitness is getting less. Maybe I'm resorting back to old habits, which are all thoughts that were going through my head in an emotional kind of state after running the half marathon. There's data behind me that backs up, hold on a minute, mate. Like, you're chatting utter waffle right now. You're just emotionally reacting internally to a situation that isn't as bad as what you're making out. And again, when it comes to, this is kind of my wrap-up point I'm just going to chuck in now. When it comes to these kind of things, like I've been given a massive juicy slice of data, right? 2 hours, 4 minutes on the hardest half marathon course I've ever been on, and I've only done 3, Weymouth, Bournemouth and Bristol. But the 4th half marathon route I've ever done it was the hardest one, and I've still not got the worst time it could have gone way worse is essentially the point that I'm getting to. So on the race notes yesterday, from 1 mile to 7, I felt pretty good actually. I said about the ego and saying that, I can rely on the old fitness on the day. I thought that was actually kind of unraveling itself from miles 1 to 7. I stuck myself in behind the 2-hour pacer and was feeling pretty good actually. I was feeling pretty good, like cutting a long story short. And I knew that I wanted to nail my carbs every 5K, meaning that when I got to the end of Bulls Hill, I wanted to nail my carbs every 5K up until the 10K mark, so 5K, 10K, and then I was going to save my third gel until after Bulls Hill, which for those of you who aren't local, Bulls Hill is the notorious hill in the Yeovil Half Marathon, and it's where if obviously running uphill, you're burning more and you're eating away your glycogen. It's where I wanted to smack in the carbohydrates to kind of restore them as best as possible. But here's what happened. I did all of my pre-race plan, but I got that in my head after Bulls Hill that actually, again, because I live on the route, I know the route really well. I actually got up Bulls Hill and got that much in my head about how my hamstrings had tightened up and how I just about started to get cramp at that moment in my right calf. I completely forgot to take my third gel, and until I got to the mile 11 marker, the sign for it, and I was like, almost, there's no point taking it now. It was almost too late. The game had gone in terms of the time that I wanted to go for. So from miles 1 to 7, everything was pretty good. Got to Bulls Hill. I ran up the first big hill from the bottom of Montacute up to the back lane, and then got to Bulls Hill, ran up Bulls Hill, but then whereby normally I would be able to recover, because I was running at race pace or current race pace from miles 1 to 7, whereas normally I'd be running, a little bit slower on my training runs. There just was zero recovery in my legs. Like my calves stayed tight, my hamstrings stayed tight, and they weren't doing what I wanted them to do, which allowed me to be two choice. Right, I've got wrote down here on my notes for today's episode. Reality is the biggest leveler, and you literally can't do anything about it. And this comes to so many things when it crosses over with life, but we're not gonna speak too much about the life things today. We're here to speak about the Yeovil Half Marathon and my kind of review, personal review and an event review. When reality hits, the actual things that are happening in front of you. So right then at that moment in time, there was zero recovery coming. Like there was no ease off in the tightness of my hamstrings. There was absolutely no ease off in the tightness of my calves. It just evidenced to me that there was no conditioning for me to push for that. There was for what I wanted on the day, which kind of then got me in my own head. And then I'll tell you what else happened. My mate Chris Batstone ran up and had a chat with me after Bulls Hill, and he was like, how's things going? It was a little bit more of a distraction, but essentially from miles 10 to 11, I realised in my head that the conditioning wasn't as tight as what it had been there. And I've got that wrote down in my lessons from the event as well, is that the conditioning for my running ability right now was not as tight as what they'd once been. And again, I can flip this, right? Data, not drama. It's not as though, and again, it's like without justifying myself, but there's many things from my fitness perspective that have improved over this quarter. Like I've fully, touch wood, fully recovered a rotator cuff injury, which has been ongoing for over a year. I've dealt with a trap injury that has been triggered by whiplash from somebody driving into the back of me 4 weeks ago. All of these kind of things, and as well a loss in the family recently, just literally putting my training to the back of the pile. But the lessons are, I've relied on an old fitness that I don't have right now. I haven't kept my running conditioning as tight as what I needed it to be, not necessarily what I wanted it to be. And the other thing that's really important here is that life happens and reality is your biggest leveler. But there's no point arguing with it. You've just got to work on what I do next. And obviously if you're somebody else who's like, oh shit, my current fitness levels aren't what they used to be or aren't what I want them to be, then we kind of got two choices. And like I said at the start, I wanted this to be a way of reframing something that perceivably made me go into a negative mindset. But again, to take the time to write it out and have the possibility to air it on a podcast, and I'd love to know your thoughts as well. Like, where do you agree with me or where do you disagree with me? I'd love to know in the comments. But this is useful evidence, right? This is how I'm reframing what's happened. Because again, you've got two choices. You either do something with it or you just leave it and let it unravel. And the other reframe that I've given is that although yesterday after the race I got annoyed, and I think that's because of my expectation versus reality, number one. But I guess my expectation of myself from somebody that, you know, the reality of it is that every half marathon, every half marathon has been and gone quite well for me. They've all been sub 2 hours, most of them. So I ran Weymouth, sub 2 hours, Weymouth again, PB, Bournemouth, PB, Bristol half marathon on the hottest day of the year last year, or felt like the fucking hottest day of the year last year, and I got a second best. And yesterday I didn't have that in the legs. That's okay, but it wasn't a failure. It was just a piece of evidence that I needed essentially to, I guess, put my focus back where I wanted it. And I think what's really important is that as part of my identity with this podcast and with my journey, running has been a big part of it. So what I don't want to, I know it's not going to happen, but what I wouldn't want to happen is for me to continually, you know, get worse times. So it's a nice leveler on that front, and there's some data that I can do something with there. And then I know this is a little bit cheesy, but it's a reason to just continually show up for myself. I know that in the weight loss and fitness space, some people can give up when things don't quite go their way. You know, the gym session isn't as good. The PB doesn't happen. The scales don't drop in the direction that they want to go in. And when that happens, people throw the toys out the pram and don't just go back to basics. But if I go back to basics and I do what has worked for me in the past, I know that the results will come as a part of that. And that's what's really important, is to not use this evidence and throw my toys out the pram and quit. It's about, you know, refocusing, choosing another event, which I'll speak about shortly, and putting the work in to get the results that I actually want. And there's a little bit of a trap with this because, like, in the self-development game, there's a lot of, you know, continuous improvement and self-development, which means that you want to give yourself evidence that things are getting better, things are improving, and you can kind of have some kind of tracker on that growth. And running and fitness is the same, right? But I know that when I train for a deadlift PB, if I was to go and try and pull I think my free rep PB is 205. So if I was to go and pull 205 for free right now, there'd be no fucking chance that I'd be able to do it because I've not been training for it. And that passes over into running. There was no chance really yesterday, unless the gods aligned and my muscles wanted to work with me to recover after Bulls Hill, that I was going to get that. Maybe there was a sub 2 hour half on without the cramp, but it didn't happen, you know? And then, but on the flip side, I have been doing my shoulder rehab. I have got expert help. I have continually worked on my shoulders for the last year and 3 months. They've got better. So there's evidence to show that where I put the work in, good things happen. Okay, so what now? Event to be arranged. I don't know what the next thing is going to be. I'm a firm believer that it would be. I don't want to run another race of that distance for another 3 months at least. I think it's really important to give your body a break from those kind of things, especially for somebody who is like plus 90 kg, got a few other things going on. But it doesn't necessarily mean to say that there aren't other things that I'm going to do, like other smaller events during that time, maybe park runs, all of those kind of things. Obviously, I've got football season to finish off as well coming up. And the other little note down here is that there is personally, and again, this is quite a big share for the podcast, I have been thinking on this a little bit recently, and it's that I speak about the journey of being 23 stone to where I'm at now a lot, right? But now it's about what's next. Because if I can change an identity of somebody that's 23 stone, binge drinking, depressed, to where I'm at now, what is the next step for that? Like, if I want to, and again, without getting caught in that self-development trap of, whatever's next, whatever's next, whatever's next, whatever's next, I don't want to get caught in the whatever's next trap just because, but I do want to keep leveling up. Not for gratification, not for anybody else, but just because, 0 to 100, the 100% mindset, for me, that is what my current belief system needs. So that's what I want to go for next. So there is definitely a sense of I don't know, like, I guess next transformation about me. But I don't know what that really entails right now. This is definitely a thought process that's going on. And then the other thing as well is that what now, in terms of what's from the race day yesterday and talking about it today to go out pretty soon on the podcast, is that when I finished my last event, which was the ultra marathon, I did have a pretty heavy hip injury, and it prevented me from running for 5 months afterwards, or 4 months afterwards. So there are no gaps now. And again, like, if you're just going to put like science and training behind it, I didn't run for 4 months last year. So to go in now where I'm at and expect to go in without a full block of training for this half marathon, it was stupid really to think that I'd get anywhere near my best version of running, But there's no gaps and there's no injury right now. So what is next and what's now for me is to just keep going, keep building on what I've got now, and that time that I've kind of got in my head that I want to achieve will happen because I'll put the work in, and you're hearing it first on the podcast today. So moving on to actual Yeovil half marathon. I have spoken on this podcast about it before. I've spoken to people, my clients, friends, about Yeovil half marathon before. I always said I wouldn't run it, not from a snobby way, but just for the sheer fact that every run that I'd ever done, like big run, small run, event, whatever it was, even the Goggins challenge, was all based on the Yeovil half marathon route. Everything that I've ever done, most of the miles that I've done since I've been running this podcast have been done. In fact, all of the miles I've done since I've been running this podcast have been done on the Yeovil half marathon route. So it's kind of like, I don't want to just run a race on the route that I did. But it was actually way better than what I thought it was. I knew the route, which obviously helped. There was landmarks and locations, which I enjoy. I saw lots of family who were out on the course, which was amazing to see them. And obviously having that network of people cheering you on as you go around, which is obviously great. And the other thing as well, I think having the podcast and being a coach in a local area, you kind of put that personal expectation on you that people are going to think that you're going to, be amazing. And I guess there's a little bit of a fear of what other people think here, but you don't want to come across like you're not doing very well on the day. But actually, I didn't really see many. I saw obviously a fair few people that I knew, but there wasn't as many people as I thought. And actually, not everybody's assholes. There were like a couple of moments on the course where a couple individuals maybe let themselves down. But, there's no time. I don't leave headspace for assholes. But that's cool as well. Next point, it is a tough course. So if you are listening and you're listening for the bit about the review of the Yeovil half marathon, it is the toughest course I've ran. People talk about the hill at Weymouth, but I don't mind that. I mean, every time I've ran that, I've done well. So there are multiple hills on the Yeovil half marathon. And Balls Hill gets talked about a lot, but there are a couple in the same kind of area. You go from down into like the back of Tintnell Road from Montacute and go up, and then you go onto the Loughton Road. And there are 2 hills in that area there that make the course pretty difficult, and it's quite a tough segment. One of the toughest segments of a half marathon route that I've done. But I know that there are harder half marathons at Yeovil as well. And I think the fundamental point of this is that I would do it again. So I think me and Yeovil half marathon have some unfinished business, put it that way. Other things to talk about today are just a free client shout outs that I want to get onto the podcast. So this may make a clip, but personal shout out on the podcast today for Alice Vincent, who didn't run Yeovil, but she did run Berlin half marathon, and she did get a PB on that course. She told me that the course was really flat. It was her fifth major of the half marathon majors, so she's got one more to do, and she'll have completed all of the majors in the half marathon space, which is incredible. So I'm really proud of her. She puts the work in twice a week, every week, and we've worked really hard on her running, and she's worked really hard on her running over the last 18 months. Dunk McCabe is training for Edinburgh Marathon with me, and I wanted to give him a race day experience, so we entered him into Yeovil yesterday. We gave him a race plan, but he completely and utterly obliterated any kind of... we knew that he was doing really well at the minute, but we didn't realise how well he was doing. So Dunk, he got a 5k PB and a half marathon PB on the course yesterday, so I'm really proud of how things are going with him right now. And the final shout out, Charlotte Hannum ran her first ever 10-kilometre race ever yesterday. I put the idea in the forefront of her mind because I'm always looking for avenues with clients of making things enjoyable for them, or giving them something other than, you know, if you're with me for health reasons or weight loss or whatever, we want to make the end goal easier by giving you a process to follow during it. And I just suggested in January that maybe a big challenge would be something that we could sign up for. She didn't believe she could do it at the time, but Charlotte completed her first ever 10k yesterday, and I cannot say how proud of not only Charlotte but all three of my clients yesterday, which is really cool. So that's that. That's the Yeovil Half Marathon review. That's a personal review. It's like a nice little thing to talk about it and reframe and take the reality of the situation away. But like I kind of alluded to it earlier into the podcast, right? And this is a nice little takeaway for anybody who's listening to this for running purposes, for mindset purposes or fitness. When things get harder, you got two choices. You've either got to knuckle down and face the responsibility of the situation, or you give up. Two choices. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like and a comment on today's episode. And if you are watching on YouTube, hi YouTube, like and subscribe below. You know the drill. Thank you very much. Keep your eyes peeled for more content coming from me very soon, and I'll be back here with a new podcast every Friday. Take care.